I'm a 22-year-old Brazilian male from a really small town, and in 2018 I moved to the capital of my state for study and work. In these 5 years, I've never had a sight of a creepy encounter or even a robbery. But last Friday, I had the worst experience of my life. At the start of 2020, I moved to this apartment complex. I live on the first floor of the first block, which makes the space behind my bedroom window a common area. And in these 3 years, same thing. All peace, no robbery around. Not many people walking behind the place looking inside, except some internet provider technicians and a trustful neighbor, who eventually walks behind to make it to his bike faster at the start of the day. People tend to ignore us living inside. They would pass, just minding their own business, talking to me only if I was in a different area of the apartment. A little porch in the living room. I currently live with 2 friends from my old town and my girlfriend. Last Friday, one of those friends went back to our town, leaving me, my girlfriend, and the other friend alone in the apartment. Around 3 a.m., me and my girlfriend came home from a bar that we like to go to every Friday. At this point, it was all normal. We came and ate something, took a shower, and rolled a blunt like normal couples do. In that time, my friend came home at around 3:30 a.m., making the situation even more secure for us, as usual. We invited him to smoke, which he denied because he was tired, so we decided to just smoke and go to my bedroom to get it on. During the deed, we hear some strange noises but end up continuing. In some moments, we want to change the position and hear again the noise of something sliding. So I looked at the windows and saw a guy's face, practically glued to the window bars watching us. Now I have a very short temper, which leads me into berserk mode, instantly breaking the window glass with my bare hands. I was really pissed and I ran to the kitchen to get a cutting knife while repeatedly screaming, "I'm gonna kill you." When my adrenaline subsided, I managed to calm down and called my mom to say that I was going to stay at her house for a few days in my old town. We're very scared and suspicious of the neighbor upstairs, as we saw him in the same place earlier, and I could recognize scars from freckles on both the window face and the face from earlier. However, without confirmation, we're left in an extremely uncomfortable position, not knowing exactly who the person is, and him knowing exactly who we are, him knowing that we were going to be late, knowing where we live, etc. About the dude, the guy that we suspect was seen in the same spot earlier picking up weed ends. He looked into the apartment and chuckled. He's my neighbor upstairs and he doesn't work, he doesn't study. He kinda just listens to music all day and does drugs. As I have insomnia, I can often hear him arranging lines of coke and then snorting. And I hate the way that stuff makes me feel. This happened about 6 years ago to me and 2 other friends. I'm a 20-year-old female. I was 14 at the time of this story and we were seeing the new Jumanji movie. This was my second time seeing it, but I was super excited because my mom had decided that I could finally start getting dropped off when I hung out with friends, instead of her coming with us. After she dropped us off, we went inside, got our tickets and snacks at the concessions, and then went to decide where we wanted to sit. This was before there was the assigned seating and you could just sit wherever you wanted. Of course, being teenagers and wanting to be on our own, we sat in the back so that we would not interrupt the other movie watchers with our snickering and jokes. There weren't that many people there, maybe like 3 groups of kids and various other adults around them. But I did not pay much attention to them. We just wanted to be on our own. Soon after we were settled, the trailer started and that's when he walked in. I did not pay much attention to him then, but I still noted that he was the last person to enter the theater. I can still remember exactly how he looked to this day. He must have been in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. He was Caucasian, had dark eyes and reddish-brown hair and a short beard. He was wearing running shoes, jeans, and a white baseball hat, and a jacket over a t-shirt. He did a quick scan of the theater and he stopped with his head in our direction and started making his way up the steps, all the while he remained fixated on us. We were one row from the very back and he sat directly in front of us, right in front of my friend who was sat in the middle. This was the first, more noticeable red flag. Soon after that movie started, I immediately tried to focus in on the movie, but not long after it had started, the man started twisting his hat so at times it faced forwards and then backwards on his head. That would not have been a problem if it wasn't for the fact that every time he adjusted his hat, he would completely turn his head to stare at us and then smirk for a few seconds before turning back. It continued on like this for almost the entirety of the first half of the movie. He would then giggle to himself quietly, even if the movie was in no way comedic. The vibes were just off on this guy, bordering on sinister. By then, I had completely lost interest in the movie and remained unfocused on what he was doing. Soon enough, he changed to creep tactics, and every time the movie characters told a joke or said something remotely funny, he would full-on belly laugh and turn around toward us, while laughing and making direct eye contact with each of us. And after he got tired of that one, he would stand straight up and rotate to face us, smile creepily, and then sit back down. I was literally so tensed up that I had stopped eating my M&Ms and now my friends had started trading uneasy glances with me, and I could tell that they were as uncomfortable as I was. I remember clearly my friend to my left grabbing my arm as the movie was getting closer to the end and whispering my name nervously with widened eyes. I replied with, "I know, I've been watching him too." I had decided to start coming up with a plan. I already knew that the employees here were unreliable, so I decided to trust the only thing that I could think of without my mom there: women. It was almost the end of the movie and I turned and grabbed both my friends' arms and whispered to them as quietly as I could, "Guys, the moment the credits start, I want y'all to run to the bathroom and I'm going to call my mom to come in here and get us, okay?" They nodded, both looking as terrified and uneasy as I felt. About 5 minutes later, the credits started, and the moment they did, we bolted as quietly as we could. Of course, in my mind, every horror movie scenario was playing in my head with me being the last to leave the row. So when I got to the bottom of the stairs, I decided to do the dumbest thing that I could have done. Go easy on me, I was young and stupid and scared. I stopped and turned around as my friends ran ahead of me into the bathrooms. The theater was empty now except for him in our row crawling around and looking under the seats. This felt like it lasted for a couple of minutes but could not have been more than a couple of seconds. I was just petrified. I couldn't move at that moment, but believe me, I started moving again when his head popped up from the end of the row, and after a jerk, motion scan of the room, his eyes focused in on me. I swear that his eyes were so wide I could see the whites from all the way down there. And that's when he got up and started running. And so did I. I bolted out of there, skidding on the slick carpet, and shot my way to the woman's bathroom, which was 4 theater entrances ahead of me. I could see my friend peeking out the side of the entrance as I got closer. I noticed that my other friend was not accompanying her. After I could speak again and was semi-breathing normally, we headed deeper into the stalls, and I shakily asked her where our friend went. She told me that instead of running into the bathroom, she shot off to the concessions where there are sometimes employees. This might have been my first option if I didn't know my theater well enough to know that it was a 50-50 chance for any employees to be there at that moment. We then calmed down a bit more, for we were now in the noisier and crowded bathrooms surrounded by the other people and adults. After like 4 minutes, we decided to take a peek out of the entrance to see if he was there. And I kid you not, this guy was pacing back and forth in front of the entrance, with the most angry look on his face, staring directly at me when I poked my head out. I still don't know why I didn't tell any of the women around us what was happening. Then we finally called my mom close to tears and told her what was happening. She immediately left the store that she was at to come pick us up, and she could hear that we were very upset. After waiting a minute more, we decided to take another look outside, and thank God he was gone. We saw our friend standing near the front of the theater next to an employee. Turns out that she had been standing next to the worker and watching the man run in my direction, and then pace in front of the bathroom and then finally leave. She never said anything to the worker, which I thought was stupid then, and thinking back it's even stupider. But we were dumb. And we waited for my mom to get there around the employee who never said anything to us and was probably just confused. We finally saw her car pull up and raced out to it and told her to drive out of there quickly. After telling her what happened, she told us that we were probably overreacting, and he maybe thought that we were cute and we were the ones who misunderstood the situation. Still kinda pissed at her for that. Very ignorant of a very knowledgeable and usually understanding woman, but maybe she was trying to comfort us. I don't know, all I know is that man did not have good intentions, and we had every right to be as afraid as we were. Just thinking about it gives me the same goosebumps that I had in that theater. I know that if I saw him today, I would know exactly who he is. In middle school, I eagerly looked forward to my first sleepover at my friend Emma's house. The anticipation of spending the night away from home, staying up late and sharing secrets with my best friends filled me with excitement. Little did I know that this seemingly innocent night would turn into a terrifying ordeal that would forever be remembered. As the night went on, we laughed and played video games, our excitement making the time fly. The clock eventually struck 3 in the morning when an eerie silence had settled over us, an unusual stillness that heightened our senses. I brushed it off, attributing it to the late hour and the occasional rustling of the wind outside. But then a sharp sound pierced through the quiet, a distinct tapping on the front door. My heart skipped a beat and my friends and I traded worried glances. We listened intently, hoping that it was a figment of our imagination. Tap, tap, tap. The sound came again, this time more pronounced. Fear gripped us as the tapping turned into a relentless pounding on the door. It was as if somebody was determined to get in. With trembling hands, I mustered the courage to peek through the window beside the door. My heart pounded in my chest as I caught a glimpse of a figure, masked and menacing, trying to force his way into the house. Panic swept through us, and without hesitation, I rushed to Emma's parents' room. My voice quivered as I shook her mom awake, desperately trying to convey the urgency of the situation. Somebody's trying to break in. Her parents sprang into action, alerting the police while keeping us safe in the back of the house. Huddled together, we listened as the intruders' attempts to break in grew more frantic. Our hearts pounded in unison and tears welled in our eyes. Time felt like an eternity as we waited for the arrival of the police. The darkness outside seemed to conceal endless possibilities, and we clung to each other. Finally, we could hear the police cars through the silence, and a wave of relief had washed over us. The sound of the intruder's knocking and footsteps could be heard as he fled into the night, scared off by the approaching authorities. As the police arrived and thoroughly searched the area, they offered words of reassurance and comfort, their presence bringing a sense of security to our shaken hearts. They assured us that they would remain vigilant throughout the night to ensure that we would be safe. As the morning light slowly broke through the darkness, a sense of normalcy had returned to Emma's house. The police concluded their investigation and finally left, and we were assured that measures would be taken to keep us safe. Since that night, I haven't had another sleepover. I don't know if it was more my parents being too scared by everything, but I will never forget what happened. I, a 30-year-old female, was shopping at a grocery store. I was in the drink aisle reaching for something when I suddenly got a bad feeling. I turned my head to look back and jumped when a man who was extremely close to me, like an inch behind me, quickly moved past me. My knee-jerk reaction was to reach for my back pocket to make sure that my car keys were still there, and it was. And so I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was someone in a hurry, who perhaps almost ran into me absent-mindedly. As I finished grabbing my drinks, I glanced at him. He stopped a few feet from me, hands behind his back, casually walking back and forth looking at drinks. He did not have a cart or basket, but maybe he was just grabbing some drinks and didn't need one. I moved on to another aisle, and after I reached to grab something and turn around, there he is again. Except this time a few feet from me, again hands behind his back, looking at items in the aisle. Spooked at this point, I went to check out. As I'm in line, I look behind me and I don't see him. Good, I'm in the clear. I turned my head back around and bam, there he is on my left, looking at something near the checkout line. There are several different checkout lines as well as a self-checkout, so the odds of him being there coincidentally seemed low. He still did not have a cart or any items. Not knowing what else to do, I just stare directly at him until he notices me. He immediately walks off and I don't see him again. Considering how close he got, I think he was trying to steal from me. I was probably seen as an easy target because I was alone with a purse. Either that or I just stared down some innocent poor soul. I've never only started thinking about this in the last 10 to 15 years, but I think I narrowly escaped being murdered as a kid. When I was a teen growing up in rural Texas, a family from Las Vegas moved in next to us. It was Harry, that's his real name, and his wife, her mother, 2 daughters, and one of their husbands. I was drawn to them because they were very friendly and interesting, all except for Harry. It didn't take long to figure out that everybody in the family hated him. He gave off a real dirtbag vibe. The family had money, but it came from his wife's side of the family. He didn't really fit in with the rest of them. Over a year or so, I spent more and more time over there, but avoided Harry like the plague. Talking to his stepdaughters, I learned that their mother was getting ready to divorce him. I think you could see the writing on the wall too. One day, out of the blue, he stopped over at my house. I was outside, riding my bike or something. He asked me if I wanted to take a ride with him to check on their cattle. For some stupid reason, I forgot all of my misgivings about him. I thought that it might be cool to take a ride with him out in the country to go and check on the livestock. My mother was inside talking to a friend on the phone. I'll never forget how she reacted when I asked her if I could go with them. Without interrupting her conversation, she mouthed, "No," and shook her head to reiterate the point. She told me to just go to the front door and shake my head, rather than going outside and telling them that I wasn't going. Harry just shrugged and laughed. After his wife finally kicked him out, Harry started harassing them in weird ways, creeping outside their house at night, and even calling in fake obituaries for one of the daughters into the local newspaper. Thankfully, he took off back to Vegas soon after. After I had kids of my own, I started thinking about that incident and what could have happened to me that day. If my mother hadn't had the foresight to tell me that I couldn't go, I think Harry would have hurt me just to get back at his family, who had a fondness for me. It's chilling to think about.